Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom. How's it going?
Hang on. Sorry, no time to talk. The Indiana game just started. Sorry. We were supposed to do a listener question show, and now we've waited so long that now
thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
Yes. Yeah. I hope everyone used their skip forward 30 seconds button there, because otherwise, and I have a setting on my I use Overcast to do podcasts, and I have a thing where it just automatically skips over silences. Which, if you have that, you're wondering what we're talking about. And everyone else is like, is there a problem with this audio file? And the answer, as always, is the problem is Tony.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Tom. 45 on the Wonderlic. What'd you get?
Still haven't taken it.
Oh, looks like you're avoiding the whole testing. Interesting. Interesting.
All right. So let's, before we waste any more time, let's get to questions. And RC3 Miller asks, top 15 worst assistant coach hires. We're going to limit this to Ohio State, I think, and I don't think we can probably do 15. 15 has kind of been a theme on our board recently, so we can do 3 or 4 maybe. Recently, let's see. I think there's a pretty good argument that Bill Davis was not the best man for the job when he was hired as Ohio State's linebackers coach. I think there is the Taver Johnson year. Mm-hmm. Taver Johnson 2.0 was probably not great. That's one that, not only had some on-field issues, but also the recruiting fallout from that year was not great for quite a while. And it was, that bubble is sort of like just now getting out of the program, and it's just now not an issue anymore, but that was an issue for a while. I feel like I'm contractually obligated to say the name Nick Siciliano and give everyone PTSD. Ohio State's quarterbacks coach, late Jim Tressel era, after Joe Daniels got sick, and then the quarterback play really tailed off there for a while. That feels like one where, it wasn't great when he was there, and you look at okay, well, certainly he was hired somewhere after that, and it was like, he might have gone to the Bengals in some kind of a government make work program or something like that, but it was that didn't last long. Guys who leave Ohio State and don't get another college job after that is generally a pretty good indication. This probably isn't going. This probably did not go great.
Yeah, I would say, how about Bill Sheridan, Urban Meyer's first cornerbacks coach, who lasted about a month. You could throw Everett Withers in there, even though he was a defensive coordinator, co-defensive coordinator for an undefeated team. I think a couple of coordinator promotions is where I would go, with Ed Warner being promoted to coordinator, and also then Mark Snyder, in 2004, being made defensive coordinator after Mark D'Antonio left. Although you go back and you look at the 2004 defensive numbers now, it's like, it doesn't seem so bad anymore, even though the game is quite a bit different, but back then it was like, they got to get this guy out of here. And Jim Tressel was making some calls and called up Marshall. Was like, hey, you want this guy? I can. He's future head coach. Why not make him a present head coach?
Like Garfield trying to ship Nermal to Abu Dhabi, basically, just like, here, get in this crate. Why? Oh, you want to be a head coach, right? Get in the crate. Go to Huntington. Good luck. Godspeed.
What about Alex Grinch?
Alex Grinch has never really worked out anywhere. I don't know that I necessarily attribute all of that to him, because he was only there 1 year, and that was kind of Greg Schiano's defense. So Alex Grinch, in terms of bad coaching hire overall, yes. Bad coaching hire at Ohio State, you kind of need to give him an incomplete there. And I have not been gentle on Alex Grinch over the years, so this is not anything where I have some great fondness for him. But overall, national college football, let me say the name Brian Van Gorder out loud for you and see how that strikes you. Bob Diaco, how about that? There was a game, I don't remember which.
Brock Spack.
He was probably coaching. Brock Spack's a good one, yeah. I think Bob Diaco was coaching Purdue, like a defensive coordinator for Purdue a few years ago. And I'm watching this defense, and I had forgotten that he was there. And then the sideline reporter starts talking about the Bob Diaco defense, and the defense looked terrible. And she said, "Well, this Bob Diaco defense," and I went, okay, got it, yeah, cool, got it, yeah. Tim Beck was not outstanding.
That's the number one for me.
Tim Beck has not been outstanding. What's his name? The head coach at Bowling Green right now, who was Tom Brady's quarterback's coach, and then mumble.
It's not Schaefer, is it?
No, Scott. No, he was Tom Brady's quarterback's coach at Michigan, and then yada yada yada. 25 years later, he was the head coach at Bowling Green and got them to a bowl game, which good for you, but just a lot of there are the certain head assistant coaches and coordinators where Scott Loeffler, yeah, and there are certain coaches where you hear the name and you're like, oh, that team's going to be bad on that side of the ball this year, and they pretty much always are. And so I think that's one you could file away in that category. I think was he the one at Virginia Tech one year, where it was just kind of like he went down to Virginia Tech and the Virginia Tech offense, which was bad, got worse, and it was like, I know why, I can tell you. Florida
hiring Charlie Weiss as offensive coordinator, like, have you not seen enough at this point to know that this is not going to work, and let alone Kansas hiring him to be the head coach? But I still remember, and I've said it here before, when Tom Herman left, putting together a hot board of coaching quarterback coaches, and I didn't put Tim Beck on there because why would you hire Tim Beck based on what you saw from just in Nebraska? Like, he never made a quarterback better. They either stayed the same or got worse. And if you're staying the same, you're getting worse. And then when he gets hired because he's Ed Warner's buddy, and you're like, this is Urban Meyer, this famous control freak, basically giving over his offense to Ed Warner and Tim Beck with as much talent as an Ohio State team maybe has ever had. And
yeah, hiring the guy who had Taylor Martinez looking like he was throwing a javelin 4 years into his career. How did that go? Did it go well? What was your favorite points that they scored in the college football playoff that year?
I think it was either the first or the last, because they were the same and they didn't exist. It was the 0th point that they scored, and I forget. I don't know if it was after that game, just being in the locker room and seeing Tim Beck sitting next to Joe Burrow, like, it's going to be okay. Don't worry, it'll be okay.
I'll be fired soon. Don't worry, it'll get better. This kind of goes to, you wonder how you could have such, Urban Meyer. How could you possibly think these were good choices? And there were some other choices on that coaching staff too, but how could you think these are good choices? And I think it just kind of goes to how hard it is to maintain a good coaching staff once you start losing the first guy. Like, it's not, a lot of times you'll see a guy come in, first couple years, everything's good, you got the good coordinators in there, you got the position coaches in there, everything's looking good. And then when you start to lose those guys, the great coaches are the ones that can bring in, okay, here's the next great guy, and you keep replacing, you don't miss. And even Nick Saban misses sometimes. Are you familiar with the name Bill O'Brien, Tony? Are you familiar with the name Pete Golding, Tony? Even Nick Saban misses from time to time. Even Urban Meyer missed from time to time. But that's one of the things that I think really separates the great head coaches from the just pretty good head coaches is you probably miss from time to time, but you don't miss too badly. You don't miss too often. I think that's maybe one of the most underrated part of a head coach's job.
Nick Saban may be missing two guys right now with Tommy Rees and Kevin Steele as his coordinators. Like, I'm not convinced either of those guys, and I'm not sure they have the quarterbacks to get the job done there anyway. But even like the first coordinator for Urban Meyer, first offensive coordinator, Tom Herman, couldn't have done any better. First defensive coordinator for Ryan Day, Jeff Hafley, couldn't have done any better. What happened after that? That's, nobody, we don't need to talk about that, but it is difficult to find the guy year after year. And I'd say it's pretty much impossible. And then, or you could have guys that you keep forever and nobody wants, like the Ohio State, Jim Bowman type of thing, where the head coach, Jim Tressel's satisfied and happy, but do you really want a staff that nobody else wants? Are you setting yourself, or you're putting a ceiling over the first floor of your house when you've got, more floors you could get to, but you're like, no. Can't afford to heat those. Let's just keep it here on the first floor.
Why would you put a glass ceiling in your own house? Well, think of it like a skylight, but one you can't open. Okay, good. Seems like a choice. All right, next one from RC3 Miller. Top 15 teams you would add to the Big Ten solely based on hungry huddle potential. And again, I don't think I have 15 here, but man, I could go for like SMU or TCU, and we could hit Fuel City Tacos and Pecan Lodge Barbecue and all that. I think that would probably be the top of my list. University of Texas Rio Grande Valley is starting a team, or they're in the process of considering starting a team that would be an FCS team. I am certain this is not somewhere you've ever been, but there is a chain down there, a taco chain called Taco Palenque that is like just southern Texas. I don't think it's in the Metroplex or in Houston, but it's, if you go down to Brownsville or El Paso or somewhere like that, you can find that. That is my absolute favorite chain Mexican. That would be it's one of those things where we would never have any reason to go down there for football purposes. But if the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley was there, I could destroy some Taco Palenque right now.
Yeah, my first thought was TCU for Pecan Lodge, Memphis, perhaps. That wouldn't be bad. I do think let's not sell short what the Big Ten has here. And one of the heard a commercial on the radio today about the I-80 truck stop in Iowa that we go to every time we're in Iowa. Did you know, Tom, that in that place, they advertised a chiropractor, a dentist, and some other medical personnel that they have there as well. And in the truck stop, in case, I got a kink in my neck, let me go get this out, or, I've broken a molar, like, stop on by. And also here's a 97-cent, 48-ounce slushie.
Yeah, so we'll do a hungry huddle at the chiropractor. Tony, once again, has understood the assignment terrifically. I'm just thinking through some of the other places, man, like Tennessee or North Carolina State or someone like that. I could go for some Cookout. Cookout is one of Cookout. Have you had Cookout?
We did on one of the trips last year.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That is Cookout is always a good time.
Cheap.
If you have not eaten there, it's one of those things where they tell you the total and you're like, and then you look at your food and you're like, one of these things is not right. Either I got the wrong food or they told me the wrong total. And somehow I have gotten, a Texas, like the Ever Given tanker that got stuck or the cargo ship that got stuck in the canal. Like I've gotten that much food and it cost me $23, and I'm not sure how this all happened. You can feed your family with milkshakes and food, and they have sides. You get what's called a tray there, and you can have sides, and like you want a corn dog as a side, that's fine. You want a like quesadilla as a side, that's fine. Like it's not just like fries. So yeah, I would absolutely go for some Cookout. And are we going to be anywhere where that might be a possibility? Unless we missed it. We missed chances driving to Atlanta.
That's what I was going to say. Just add Georgia Tech, and then whatever you want is along that road. It's on 75. Like you'll have Cookout, you'll have your Bucky's, whatever you need, you're eventually going to run into. Don't worry.
Do you have any others that you would add? I'm just trying to think of.
We've got seafood in Maryland. Like if you want that, you can do that. If you want, Are You Hungry? Perhaps you can do that at Rutgers, which you don't, unless they're going to sponsor the show. But that was. The good thing is all of these different college towns, like there's always something special. I can't say enough about, and this is already stuff that's already here, but Rutgers with the breakfast sandwiches, that and the Juicy Lucy, I think are the two best things I've eaten on any of our trips.
And the breakfast sandwiches he's talking about was, we were at our hotel and there was a bagel place around the corner. So we just went there. It was not a famous bagel place. It was just a bagel place. The bagel place is most famous possibly for Tony ordering a bunch of bagels and the guy yelling at him because he could not have that many bagels because that was all the bagels they had left. And Tony being extremely... Now, listen, was there someone who ordered dozens of bagels before that to take home to friends and family? Listen, I don't know. I wasn't there. Yeah. But it was just a very basic, Taylor ham, egg and cheese sandwich. And Tony and Kevin just were... mind blown, could not believe this sandwich, and it was just like, this is just like very typical New Jersey, any bagel shop kind of sandwich. But yes, we're back at Rutgers this year. I'm looking forward to that again. We will definitely do a hungry huddle there.
How about just the family restaurant we went to? It would have been Thanksgiving time last year with the fried cheese, the fried cheese pie. That was good. So whatever Greek guy, I forget what it was called, but that was good as well. But in terms of adding somebody new, I could go for another seafood-ish coastal type of place, but I think we've hit already all of the barbecue spots. What about I suppose we could do some crazy Scandinavian fish up in Minnesota if we wanted to. We wouldn't need to add like North Dakota or something like that.
Good luck with your lutefisk. I'm going to go back to the Juicy Lucy place, but that's fine. Whatever you want to do, you
what
go
about
have fun.
A Juicy Ludi?
No,
still no for me.
No, thank you. That's a no for me, dog. Next one from Drew23, top 15 people on the OSU beat. And, I guess the question here is, how are we defining top 15? Are we defining people whose work we respect the most? Are we just finding people we hang out with the most? How are we defining this?
I don't know. I feel like putting 15 people is a lot because the 16th person is going to be like,
didn't make the top 15? Yeah.
Right. So I think it's better if you just do a top 5. Then if the 6th person is like, come on, it's a top 5. And we both have different, I think number 1 for me is Tim May.
That's an easy one. All timer, always fun to hang out with. Absolute legend. Everyone knows him. Everyone loves him. Yes, I think he's almost, no matter how you're defining it, I think he's got to be number 1.
And then 2 is also Tim May. Top 2 Tim May. Pat Murphy's a good buddy of ours. Dan Hope, we rely on every day for the snap counts, but I know he doesn't like me, but I like Nathan Baird. He does good work. He's fun to talk to. Oh, give me some time.
I would have Doug Lesmerises pretty high on the list. Doug does great work. Doug really knows his stuff. And also, Doug went right at Kirk Ferentz during the post-game press conference last year, which was, that is the first and only time I have fist bumped an opponent or a reporter coming out of a press conference before. But it was like, all right, well, that is doing your job, and that is understanding also that there are a bunch of Iowa reporters here who, for political reasons, probably cannot go after Kirk Ferentz as hard as he did, and he got the response that it became a story, the response that he got. So, and then the response that Kirk Ferentz gave a couple days later, which was also fantastic. So, yeah, I would have Doug up there pretty high. But we have our buddy Marcus Hartman from the Dayton Daily News. We hang out with him a bunch on the road. We have Steve Hellweg, Dave Biddle. We hang out with a bunch of different guys. And I think the interesting thing that people might not quite understand about the whole dynamics of the beat is you spend more time with your competitors than you do with your coworkers in a lot of cases where, it's for example, Alex Gleitman, Ross Fulton, Mark Givler, like we'll see those guys sometimes and some of them more than others just in person, but you're with your competitors during football season. You're there on Tuesday interviews, Wednesday interviews, on Saturday at the games. If it's an away game, there's someone at one of the hotels that you're hanging out at. Didn't mention Spencer Holbrook and Matt Parker from Letterman Row. Really good guys. Matt's a Mets fan, so he's a Mets fan who wears a green Hartford Whalers hat, and I'm like, yes, this is
trying too hard.
This is someone I can hang out with. You end up. It's a weird dynamic where, like, I'm sure if you work for like whatever Deloitte and Touche, you're not necessarily best friends with the people from one of the other accounting firms in town. But just because of the dynamics of the beat, you end up on the road with whoever. And, there's virtual Berm, Landis. There's a bunch of these guys who, like, if we're in a hotel with them, we'll, you'll hang out with them. And sometimes you stay in the same hotel and sometimes you don't. We go out to dinner with big groups of people from other sites pretty frequently. So, yeah, it's kind of a weird dynamic. But, yeah, I think I would be hard pressed to think of too many people I would, not have on a like, oh yeah, I'd hang out with them. Like it's a pretty easygoing group.
Yeah, and you eventually do hang out with everybody, be it the bowl games or even just during the season, like for standing around for interviews, like, hey, where are you staying this weekend? Where are you, like, okay, cool, I'm there too. Let's, I'm sure we'll see you, and those sorts of things. And it's like, who's got the who's like alone in a hotel room? Okay, that's the drinking room, because that's where everybody's going to go to hang out or whatever. It's not quite like that, but it's I view so many people basically as coworkers because we're all doing the same job.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking through, like, who have we not mentioned, like Stephen Means and Jared Smalley. I mean, there's Clay Hall. Like, there's a bunch of people who we haven't mentioned. Omission is Austin. Yeah, omission is not us saying like, oh, we don't actually like these people. It's like, yeah, we have not said literally everyone's name. The only one that I would say we definitely meant to exclude was Kevin Noon, because you're probably like, hey, did they exclude him because he's on their company? No, that wasn't the reason.
So we'll make that clear.
Just want to make that clear. We don't want to offend anyone, but also we want to speak the plain truth. Next one from Buckeye for Life 20. Are you more or less optimistic about OSU's chances at winning a national title coming out of spring ball, and why?
That's an interesting question. I don't know that. I guess I have to be less optimistic, but I don't know that it's a lot less. The offensive line is still the concern, and you think that it would have maybe gotten better throughout the spring, and maybe it did. But just hearing Ryan Day talk about the offensive line coming out of spring, and like, oh, he seems pretty serious about this, and there are probably concerns there. But I don't know that it's a lot less, because I also still think the offensive line is going to come together. It's one of these things like, oh, are they going to get down to 85? It always happens. Like, the offensive line always comes together. Now, whether it's great or not, I don't think you always have to have a great offensive line to win a national championship. Alabama's offensive lines have not been great. How many first rounders on Georgia's offensive line right now? I don't think there were any last year, and you're talking about guys that are 6th or 7th round pick as tackles, starting tackles. So you can get away with having an okay offensive line as long as you've got talent elsewhere. And I kind of feel like that's where Ohio State is right now, and it's up to the opponents to take advantage of that in the right way, at the right time, in the right games. So I would say I'm a little less optimistic, but I'm not. It's like, well, forget it. I'm taking them off the board.
Yeah, I feel like I'm much more optimistic about the defense than I was, and that's such a huge thing, because that has been the issue that's kept them from winning the national championship or competing for the national championship basically every year since 2019. It's been a defensive issue. And if the defense has taken another step, and you sort of, based on Jim Knowles' history and the trajectory his teams tend to take in year 2 for him and year 3 for him, you would expect them to be better this year, and the talent is there this year. So it feels like this is probably has a very good chance of being the best Ohio State defense since 2019, which was a very, very good Ohio State defense. And then on the other side of the ball, the offensive line was not what I expected it to be this spring. And frankly, the quarterback play was not quite what I expected it to be this spring. And then the question is, okay, how much of that is the defense is much better? How much of that is you're missing a couple wide receivers? How much of that is your offensive line is shaky? And the answer is, yeah, probably some too. I think, pretty solid faith that based on Ryan Day's track record, Brian Hartline's track record, Corey Dennis's track record, that Todd Fitch's track record, that there's going to be a quarterback who is able to play at championship caliber by the time the season starts. It's just until they show you they can't do that, you just sort of assume they're going to do that every year. So then, then it's kind of just the offensive line. So I think I'm probably about neutral. Maybe slightly above neutral in terms of just because the defense was so much better than it was at times last season. Unless that was real fool's gold, I think maybe I'm slightly more optimistic about their chances this year. But it's slightly more optimistic is still. We talked the last time about the schedule, and like, you've got some real challenging games on that schedule. And if you're 10-2, you're probably not making it. So that's, you have a relatively narrow margin for error. But if they're 11-1, let's say they do exactly what they did last year. They're 11-1 and they lose to Michigan. They're probably still getting in ahead of an 11-1 or 10-2 Big 12 champion, ACC champion, Pac-12 champion, because I think last year people saw like, okay, this team can hang. This team this team does belong in the playoff. And I think that probably buys you a little bit of goodwill. So, yeah, I guess to sum up, in conclusion, spring football was a land of contrasts.
Also, one last thing. Bill Rabinowitz and Joey Kaufman, also good dudes.
Oh, yeah. See, and this is the problem. You ask us to do like a top 15, and it's like, well, there's more than 15 people. Like, again, this is, going back to, I came back on the beat in 2017. Going back to 2017, I think we have hung out with literally everyone on the beat at some point in, on a road trip, at a bowl game. Like in a bowl game, you're there for a week. And there's a media room. So you're all hanging out in the media room. And it's like, yeah, I've played pool with whoever. I've hung out with whoever. And a lot of those road trips, people are Penn State. Like some people are staying in State College and some people are staying in Altoona and some people are staying in Belfont or whatever. And, whatever it is. So you Du Bois, it's, you're not always hanging out with the same people, but you're kind of always hanging out with someone. It just kind of rotates.
Because the fact that we do hang out with so many people, doesn't that make like us like the top two?
Oh, I almost certainly. I would go so far as to say the glue that holds the entire, not just Ohio State football beat, but entire Ohio State football program together. Some people might say, stop being so humble. And I would say, that's just, I can't help it. That's how we are.
No, totally agree. Thank you for the kind words for us, both of us.
All right. Next one, at @swigonski_, which team would win more games in the Big Ten this season? 22 Orlando Pace clones or 22 Chase Young clones? And I said on Twitter when I saw this question come in, this is great because I can do an NAS ice hockey analogy. And you said, you just did one of those a couple shows ago, and I realized I don't remember what I say on these shows. So, okay. Tony, I guess you should go first.
Well, I like Chase Young's athleticism. I think he would be able to fill out the skill positions. Although, again, I've said before, I watched Orlando Pace play high school basketball, and he's plenty athletic, and he moves pretty well. I can't really side against anything that is just completely Orlando Pace versus anybody else that is completely that thing. Now, I think I may have taken, when we did the NES, the hockey thing, I think you went with 5 Orlando Paces. I may have gone with, and I don't remember if it was 5 Joey Galloways or 5 Antoine Winfields. And I still think that would be an incredible, sight to behold, both personally in real life and also on Nintendo. But I think I'm going to have to go with the 22 Orlando Paces until somebody proves me wrong.
Wrong. Hard. I mean, how much it would pain me to go against Orlando Pace in anything, but how is an Orlando Pace offense going to score? They're going to have to just go line up in just wing tee and just jumbo package and just run the ball down your throat. And you're probably need, like, that feels like that's an offense that's going, it's like a Navy offense. You're going 12 plays, 80 yards, chewing up 9 minutes off the clock. If you get Chase Young in space on offense, Orlando Pace is not running Chase Young down. Orlando Pace is going to run a lot of people down. I don't think he's running Chase Young down. So it feels like you get Chase Young the ball in space, you're going to have a lot more two-play 80-yard drives for the Chase Young team than the Orlando Pace drive or team. And that just means there's more opportunities. How is Orlando Pace's ball security? I don't know. But you're going to get a whole lot of opportunities to find out. And you only need a couple fumbles among those 12-play drives where there's just fewer opportunities for turnovers for Chase Young if he's going 2-play drives. So I think I feel like that's a pretty clear-cut answer to me. If it's Antoine Winfield versus Orlando Pace, you're just like, they're just running him over. But Chase Young, I think, is a combination of big and quick enough that he might present a little bit of an issue.
Of course, it's going to present an issue, but I will bring you the name Alejandro Villanueva. Does that mean anything to you?
A former Army offensive tackle who played for the Pittsburgh Steelers, perhaps best known for his USAA commercials. So, yes.
Do you know what he did as a senior at Army?
Wasn't he a wide receiver?
In fact, he was. He caught listed at 6'10", 283 pounds, 34 catches for 522 yards and 5 touchdowns. He was a red zone weapon. He was just a post player. They throw him the ball, and this is when they're trying to change Army into being whatever. But you are telling me Alejandro Villanueva is a better wide receiver than Orlando Pace. This is what you're telling me?
I'm not saying he's a better wide receiver than Orlando Pace. I'm just saying I think you're going to have more opportunities for turnovers and missed executions or whatever on the Orlando Pace offense than the Chase Young offense. Don't think of this as me bad-mouthing Orlando Pace. This is me just sort of appreciating Chase Young and what Chase Young can bring.
What is the Chase Young offense?
Get the ball to him in space. It doesn't matter. Run against an Orlando Pace defense. Get him the ball in space, and this is Rich Rod. This is like Rich Rod. Just get him out there, and once he's outside the tackles, you're not running him down because he's going to have a speed advantage. So just get it out there. Like this is you have an opportunity to just you make one guy miss, and then you're off.
The Chase Young basically is Tate Forcier to Sam McGuffey is basically what you're saying. That's what he is. Yes,
and you're picking against that duo. Can you imagine that? I can't. I mean, come on, Tony. Learn something about college football. Goodness.
Now I feel like a fool. My 45 Wonderlic that I will continue to talk about now feels more like a 36 because I have gone against QB Force and Sam McGuffey, the Michael Jordan of football. Tom,
Tony,
yeah.
Over under October 13th, 2027. The next show we record where you do not mention that you got a 45 on a sample Wonderlic. Over or under? What do you think?
I'll go under because I will forget about it at some point. Or like I told you about having a dream where I was we recorded the show while I was like in and out of sleep. I may have one of those like an actual show where I'm in and out of sleep and I just forget about it. So I'll go under.
Okay. Well, let's hope you're right.
Anything else, Tom, before we go? I think we've put a full show out there. Mm-hmm. Maybe some empty carbs for a lot of people.
Welcome to the off season, everyone.
So that will then do it. I want to thank you all for joining us. As always, please become a member at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Say hello to us there on the message board. Watch us on YouTube at youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. Hit the like on this video if you like. If you're watching it, leave us a 5-star rating and review via your podcast platform of choice if you would like. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit the bell to be notified when we go live, when we drop videos, whenever, there's all kinds of stuff always going on. And even though it is the summertime, there are still camps and, all kinds of things like that we'll be covering as well. So keep an eye out for that sort of stuff as well. And also you can find us at youtube.com/@CFB Playbook, putting more content there as well. If you're not subscribed there, please do that as well. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys later.